Some More Outdoor, Episode 14.
Welcome to Some More Outdoor, where we speak with authors, entrepreneurs, and business owners about how the outdoors has affected their life and their projects. This show is to remind you of the healing properties of the outdoors. So, are you ready to learn what the nature effect can do for your life? Well, here's your host, Brett Trout.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Some More Outdoor. I'm your host, Brett Trout, and this is the podcast dedicated to reminding you to get out and experience a nature effect. My goal is to help you reestablish your connection with nature so you can live with that childlike wonder again. So welcome to the show. I'm so excited to be here. I have a really awesome person here today, my buddy, Brady Cabe. How you doing today, Brady?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining me today. So Brady is a San Luis Obispo wedding and landscape photographer, an astrophotography workshop teacher, husband, father of two, half marathon finisher, bacon and chocolate lover. So Brady is also my personal photographer. He's done some great work for Mountain Man Soap. We recently did this last summer up in Yosemite, some shots for Some More Outdoor. And then last year, I invited him to Ojai, where I grew up, and he took our my parents' 50th anniversary picture. So he does amazing work, and I'm so excited to be here because he does a lot of outdoor photography, landscape photography. And I just wanted to bring him on the show and speak to him about his experience and his life around the outdoors. So thanks again for being on, Brady. And why don't you go ahead and share some more information about yourself and take it away.
Sure. Well, yeah, like you kind of already covered, I'm half marathon finisher, bacon and chocolate lover. Those things kind of nullify each other.
Exactly.
But yeah, I did do the half marathon last year, and then I we went right into Thanksgiving, Christmas, and any sort of health benefit I got from that was nullified very quickly. And I haven't really ran since then, so I don't know if I'll ever do that again. So I leave that in my Twitter bio. That's kind of fun, but yeah, I'm not really a runner. I don't want anyone to be confused and think that I'm a runner, because I'm not really a runner. I did run. I think I'm over that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? There's a lot of people that have never even done a half marathon, and myself included, and because I'm not a runner myself, I'm more of a hiker type person, but at least you did it. At least you did it, and you can say that you've done it, and it's exciting, and so throughout this interview, I would definitely want to hear more about what he does with astrophotography, because I think that's really neat, and just what he likes to do around his landscape photography, because he does some amazing pictures or photos of the landscape and sunsets on the Pacific Coast. So I'm really excited to hear his story today and share with you guys this guy's lifestyle. So anyways, Brady, let's go ahead and just kind of jump right into this. And I always start off Some More Outdoor with some type of quote, nature quote or mantra, just really something that you live by to make sure that you take that time to get out and spend time outdoors. So why don't you go ahead and share with us today what you've come up with and how our listeners can actually utilize that to help them get outdoors more.
I sort of warned you I don't have a good quote, but I think I have a kind of a mantra that I try to embrace as much as possible, and it's a little silly, but it's YOLO, and it's kind of an internet thing, hashtag YOLO. It just stands for You Only Live Once, YOLO. And I try to apply that. I know it sounds silly, but I actually do use this to motivate myself to do things that sometimes, you can always come up with excuses not to do something. I think we can all sympathize with that. And it's very easy to say, I'll catch the next sunset or what have you. So I really try to just say, hey, you know what? YOLO. What if I die tonight and I didn't get to see that sunset, or, whatever the case may be. So I try to use that to motivate myself to get out more and do some things that I could think of a million excuses why not to do things.
No, that's perfect, because like a lot of times it comes where we just don't want to do something. And we can make those excuses. For example, we can make the excuse to not go outside and just sit in front and watch the TV or get online or just do something that takes up all our time. And then we miss the opportunity to go out. So I love that. You only live once. So I'll definitely have
absolutely.
that. Yeah, definitely. So, well, cool. Thanks for sharing that. And because of what I like to do and what my message is about people getting outdoors, I always like to jump back into the people's childhood, because when we were kids, we have that childlike wonder, and you post a lot of pictures of your son, with you. He's like your partner in crime when you guys go out and take the pictures of the landscape. So it's always fun to see his facial expression and see how he's living that with that childlike wonder. So I want you to take us on a little journey and tell us a story from your childhood that you remember and experienced in the outdoors, and really tell us that story and what that meant to you.
My parents would always take us on these summer vacations that were always a road trip. It was never anything like super extravagant, like we did go to Maui once with some family friends, but it was never, that type of trip year after year. It was always something was more of a road trip to somewhere, either to visit family or friends, and we would drive. My sister kind of hated it. I think in hindsight, she probably appreciates it. At the time, at the age that I was at when we did that kind of thing, I really enjoyed it. I've always been really into birds, kind of a bird nerd. And so I would always be just looking out the car window for different types of birds as we were driving along, through the deserts, mountains, and on all that different stuff. And one summer we went all the way to New York from Bakersfield, California, in a 1984 Nissan Maxima. Not a very big car, and it was me, my sister, and my parents.
Sounds like a blast, though. Well, and you know what? You said something there that not a lot of kids get to experience these days because of the electronics that we've bought them. And, people just, same with me, when we used to go cross country or on different trips, we didn't have iPads or phones to play games on. We had comics and stuff like that, but myself too, I used to enjoy just looking out the window and looking at the landscape and looking at the different animals as we passed them by. So definitely thanks for sharing that, because it's so important that people understand that when you're going on these trips, I know the kids love to play on their devices, but from what we remember when we're kids, we remember those times and we remember those trips where we can just look at the different landscape and see different things, and they're images that we carry forward. I don't remember those times when I was playing games and different things. Right. I always remember those times when we were traveling and we had the car games that we were playing, but we could also just look outside and see the environment around us. So thank you for sharing that story with us. The next question that I want to talk to you about is an outdoor experience. Tell us a story of a time when you visited one of the most beautiful places you had ever been to. I'm sure there's a lot because you photograph a lot now, but take us on to that time in your life and tell us that story. Share with us the experience and how it had an impact on you.
When I first kind of discovered for myself, because people have photographed inside caves before, but when I discovered for myself photographing from inside of a cave, and that was in Avila Beach that I really got to do that for the first time. And it was just, very remote part of the beach, only accessible at really low tides, and it's just one of those things where kind of almost the planets had to align for me to even get to that location and be able to take the photos that I was able to take. And there's just something about kind of the rarity of that experience, and then just the scenery that I was in that was pretty awesome.
Brady, I would love if you wouldn't mind if we could get a picture of that to put on the website on your page, so we can actually show people. We'll have links to your website too on the show notes page, but I want to show that picture and just that experience and what you're
absolutely
talking about, so people can go to the website and check that out. So yeah, that'll be definitely really cool. And how do you think that when you first started photographing the cave, how did that have an impact? How did you feel being inside of there and capturing those pictures?
It makes you feel small. The cave, that's a decent sized cave, but it's not a huge cave. So I had to kind of crouch to get in there and take the photo that I took. But yeah, it makes you feel small. I'm sort of working on a blog post about photographing in caves because I do like to do it, but oddly enough, it freaks me out. When I'm there, you kind of, the first thing is, oh wow, this is a cool location. You get all excited about that, and then you start to, there's this awareness of your surroundings. And I used to surf some. I'm in tune with the surf and the tide and things like that. So that's always in the back of your mind when you're shooting seascapes. Like, hey, I need to check the tide, make sure the tide's not going to come in while I'm in this cave. And then there's just all these awareness things that start happening like that. And then, you're like, okay, what's above me? And you look up and you're like, okay, there's some spider webs, and okay, there's some creepy crawlies. I get freaked out when I'm in there. And I don't know, I think there's something about that particular experience that's humbling in a way, because, in life, we always want to be in control of things. And when you're in situations like that, you're not always in 100% control. And I like that.
Well, yeah. And like you said, is we are never in control of what happens in nature, but we do have to be more aware of our surroundings when we're out there. And, that's what I'm encouraging people to do is definitely get outdoors, but make sure that you're aware of what's around you. And obviously you want to take some people if you're new to the outdoors and new to getting outdoors. No, I love it. And you've gotten that sense of the tide from surfing and from your experiences. So it's helped you to be able to understand, okay, how to best take these pictures in the cave and stuff. So no, definitely thanks for sharing that story. Now, I talk a lot about the nature effect, and it's something that I had just come up with. It's a simple definition. It's basically how the effect of nature has on you when you're out there. How do you feel that, and we can definitely relate this to your landscape photography portion of your business, but how do you feel that the nature effect has had an impact in your business and your life, but also taking photographs that others that may not have the opportunity to see the ocean on a regular basis because they live in a different part of the company? But how do you feel that effect has had an impact on your business and then those people that see your photography?
Well, I think what initially inspired me to take photos in the first place was nature and just being out in that. I used to surf a lot more before I had kids, and now I don't really surf all that much, but and part of that was being out in nature, and usually at times of the day that are, it's great natural light, golden hour, either right during sunrise or before sunset when the wind is calm, and that's usually when the surf is a little bit better. And that is really what kind of kicked off me wanting to take pictures. You'd get to the beach and there wouldn't be waves, or there wouldn't be, the conditions wouldn't be quite right, but the light was good, so I would start taking pictures. And that's where it all started for me. So I think it's hard to say where I would be with my photography if I hadn't initially immersed myself in nature like that. I've always liked being outdoors, but I feel like the surfing thing really got me started in my photography. And I really don't know where I would be photography-wise if I hadn't have kind of built that foundation with shooting landscapes.
So you started with landscape, and then you went into other realms of photography, such as doing like wedding photography and types of events like that?
Yeah, it was interesting how it happened for me. It was really kind of a product of my environment, is what my photography has sort of become. Initially it was, I'm surfing, there's no waves, so I take pictures. And then we decided to move from the coast back to Bakersfield, and being in that environment, there's more of a focus on portrait photography. Just with talking with other photographers as well, they're all shooting people, so I started shooting people. And so that kind of played into that and built my skill set and where I'm at today. And then, having 2 kids now, and we moved back over to the coast, the way my schedule works, my daily schedule, the best time of day for me to be able to shoot is when everyone's asleep. That sort of, morphed that into, okay, now I'm doing astrophotography because environmentally it's kind of pushing me in that direction, because something's got to give in your schedule. If you're going to shoot during the day, well, if my kids are awake, I want to be spending time with my family. And so as far as shooting landscapes, the best time for me to be shooting is at nights, and that sort of pushed me into the astrophotography stuff, and then now I love it.
You've definitely kind of answered my next question on that, but I want to kind of jump back on something that I think is important to share with our listeners as well. Is you had moved back to, and then Brady and I were just talking about this probably within the last month or so, but we were talking about him moving back to the coast and why he chose to. And could you just kind of share that story about why you guys actually moved? And I'm going to kind of give you a recap of a little bit of what we talked about, but because of the air quality in Bakersfield compared to the coast and why you chose to move back there.
Yeah, I'll definitely talk about that. I hate to rag on my hometown. I have friends and family there that I love, and this is certainly not a knock against Bakersfield. But yeah, the valley air is it's a real thing, that the air quality is bad, and everybody knows that it's not a secret. But I grew up having asthma as an adult. I kind of got re-diagnosed with RAD, which is reactive airway disease. It's basically asthma induced by environmental things like bad air quality, or I do have dog and cat dander allergy issues, and that'll also trigger my asthma. But growing up, I couldn't run a mile. Like if you knew me in elementary school, I was the asthma kid that had the rescue inhaler and couldn't do it. And then we moved over to the coast, and I trained for half marathon. I was able to run a half marathon, no need for an inhaler or anything like that. And I mean, that for me was huge because I was the asthma kid, and then now I'm this half marathon finisher guy. Side note, I'm not really a runner, but I was able to do it. And like, to me, that was just a huge red flag. And yeah, I just didn't really want my kids to have to deal with that, because I'm sure they're more susceptible to having asthma, probably, through just being my kids and the fact that I was susceptible to that. So yeah, a big part of why we're on the coast is being able to breathe the air and not have to worry about if I'm going to have to take an inhaler or whatnot, and being able to just go outside and exercise and not have to worry about the negative effects of that.
What I love about that story is, and then what I want people to take away from that is that you have to get outdoors to experience what he's talking about. You may live in a city like the Central California, 4 of the cities in Central California are in the top 10 of the worst air qualities in the country. And wherever you guys live out there, it's so important that you make sure you make that time to get out of town, go somewhere where the air quality is good. And so you can get the benefits of that. And sometimes, people, you have to take it to an extreme like Brady did, and you have to move from a place where you grew up to experience the health benefits of an environment where air quality is good, so you can breathe easier. And that could be, up in the mountains and the coast, or just somewhere to where you can be closer to nature, so it can have a better impact on your health. So thank you for sharing that little story. I think it's very important that everybody got to listen to that, because it's the outdoors can have that huge impact on your health as well. So you talked about like your journey from, moving over there and the, learning how to take photography when there was, or taking photography when there wasn't waves out. And then a product of your environment being that you go out when your kids are asleep to take the pictures and stuff. And it kind of got you into astrophotography. For those people that don't know about that, and, you're obviously inspired by your environment that you're in to start with astrophotography. Can you go in and just dive into a description of what astrophotography is and how that is having an impact in your business, as well as being out there at nighttime just to be able to teach people about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's really been huge for me because, it's kind of created this whole other, and I hate to put the term, product on it, but it's kind of created this whole other product as part of my brand that, I didn't foresee this ever, being a thing. And a part of that is offering workshops. And, I never went into this photography business thinking that I was going to teach workshops ever. It's just one of those things where, there's those people that teach workshops, and then there's photographers. And I didn't really digest the fact that you could be both a photographer and teach workshops. And teaching workshops doesn't mean, hey, I quit taking photos.
Yeah.
And definitely not for me, because it's my life force, taking photos. So yeah, I mean, being able to do astrophotography, I started getting people asking me, hey, do you teach workshops? Or, hey, can you offer me some advice? I'm happy to help people out on social media and whatnot when people ask me questions. And then I had some people just directly ask me if when's my workshop? And I'm like, well, I don't have a workshop. So then I thought, why not? And so I did one in September. It was my first workshop, and it actually went really well, and it was a lot of fun. So I've got one actually coming up this weekend. We're going to be concentrating on shooting the night sky. We're going to be capturing star trails. So we're going to be capturing photographs where it looks like the stars are streaking through the sky. And then to kind of backtrack on what astrophotography is, astrophotography is just photos of the night sky, constellations, the Milky Way, the moon, things like that. The type of photography that I do specifically is considered wide field astrophotography, which is really a spin-off of just, landscape photography. So, if you took a nice sunset photo at the ocean and you just took out the sky and put the night sky in, that's essentially what wide field astrophotography is. More of a landscape feel, but it's nighttime photography with stars and the Milky Way and things like that.
Yeah, and I love it, man. Some of the pictures that you've taken are just so incredible. And I had never heard of that or seen it until I had seen pictures that you were posting on Instagram and Facebook. And now I look at it and see, I've tried it myself. I haven't really gotten the hang of it yet, but my camera, I just cannot, I love photography. I want to take pictures when I'm out so I can share those with people as well. So it definitely does, it does take some skill and a lot to learn on something like that. But yeah, it's neat how when, you're out there doing something that you love, you're taking this landscape photography, getting into astrophotography, and then all of a sudden people start asking you, hey, can you teach me how to do that? Because people want to be able to take photographs of their own photographs of that too. So it's neat how that idea had come out of your, personal love for taking those pictures and stuff. So
yeah.
Cool, man. So I want to jump into the last parts of the questions, and it's more of to help give people an idea of what others do when they're outdoors, because a lot of people don't spend as much time as they need to, as much time outdoors as you do, and as much time as I do and other guests on the show. So I want to ask you, other than going out and taking pictures, what do you do when you get outdoors? Do you go out and just go for a hike or, physical activity, go out just to relax? What do you guys do when you go out?
It depends. Like if we all go as a family, it's usually in the middle of the day where, taking photos, the lighting is, generally not that great. So, and that's good because then I can, be more involved with helping my wife with the kids and whatnot. But I like to get in the water. So I like to go to the ocean, and my son loves the water. He loves to get in the water, with or without a wetsuit. He will get in the water, and it's the Central Coast. The water here is never really warm enough to not go in without a wetsuit. There's like a few days out of the year where the water warms up enough, but we go in anyway, and he has a little wetsuit. Sometimes we go and he has his wetsuit, and we get in the water. We're just in the water for an hour or two, and then I like to just relax, on the blanket with my wife and hang out as much as we can while our kids are
having
playing
fun
in the sand or doing whatever. We definitely need to do that more than we're doing now. Try not to take for granted the fact that we live at the beach, but it's hard. Life's busy. But YOLO, right?
yes, YOLO. Well, and you say something that is very important, is that you guys go out as a family and you're hanging out, you're sitting with your wife, watching the kids, you're connecting as a family, and you're creating those memories. And so many people don't get a chance to do that because you're right. Our lives are so busy that we don't go spend time out and just sit and be with our families out there. Whether it's sitting, you have the luxury of being close to the beach or being close to the mountains or just going even to a local park and just hanging out and watching your kids play and experiencing those moments where you can connect as a family. So when you don't spend time outdoors, which you spend a lot because you take a lot of pictures, but when you don't, what negative effects do you see in your life and your business?
I just get a little stir crazy, honestly. Yeah, I feel like I need to go out and just, I don't necessarily have to get my feet wet, but if I'm in that environment, just gives me a chance to clear my head and kind of reset almost. Yeah, I feel like I almost need it, and that there'll be weeks where, I can't go, I can't do a sunset session for, whatever the reason might be. And, it's cloudy at night and there's no stars. And so I have to, sometimes I just go anyway, even if I don't have optimal conditions. And, maybe I don't take any good photos, but, just being out there and hopping around on rocks at night is kind of invigorating. And I just kind of have to do it.
Absolutely. Well, and you say something that a lot of people experience, and you especially, because you're going out typically to take pictures of landscape, and take pictures of the night sky. But when the weather doesn't permit, how do you go out anyways, but how do you make sure that that's the most important thing to do?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it isn't always the most important thing to do. I mean, maybe for me mentally it is, and I just have to make sure and allocate time for that. But yeah, that's a tough question. I'm not really sure how to answer that. Sometimes I just go, or I try to take my son with me as much as possible. Although there's this struggle with, if I take him with me, there's limitations on where I can go, because I know what I can put myself at risk, or I know how risky I can be when I'm by myself in terms of locations and surf and tide and rocks and things like that. But when I take my son, it narrows the options of where I can go, because I don't want him to be, he's 5, so I can't like strap him to my back or anything. I guess I could, but he wants to be jumping around with me and throwing rocks in the water and just having fun doing that kind of stuff. So I have to find that balance. But yeah, sometimes it's just, I get home and there's just no way I can go anywhere. But hey, if I take my son with me, gives my wife a little bit of a break so she can just be with our daughter and decompress, and then we go decompress too. And that's kind of my solution for those situations.
Excellent. So can you share with us one of your favorite places that you like to go to get away and think, and what that place means to you?
In Avila, there's a few spots like that are just so remote. There's one that I've kind of recently discovered for myself. It's definitely been tread upon before, but there's this place kind of just north of Shell Beach. You may or may not have to cross or climb over a fence to get down to it. But it's just a nice spot where you're just kind of by yourself. There's waves, there's rocks. It's pretty peaceful. And there's just a lot of depth and dynamism in the landscape there. And it's just fun to go down there and see what you can get each time you go. It's a little bit different if the tide's higher or lower. It's a different experience. And yeah, for me, it's just being able to go to a spot that I know is kind of remote and not very often visited, and just enjoy it.
And to capture those moments to share with people around the world.
Right.
And just finding a place like that. And what I love about what you do with your photography is that you go to these places and then you come back and you've got these like amazing pictures that people love that may never be able to experience a place like that. So I appreciate you doing that and sharing your photography around the world. And I want to bring back to something that Brady and I actually did this last summer. I took some people up to Yosemite for our business, where we set up camps, and brought Brady along and to take some photography pictures for me, as well as just allow him to experience Yosemite at a time when kind of at the height of his career, well, it may not be the height of his career, but where he loves just taking these landscapes and this outdoor photography. And can you go and just share that experience with us, Brady, and how that had an impact on you?
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible. I mean, it's one of those things where until you're there and you're, in front of Half Dome, seeing it for the first time in a long time. I went to Yosemite when I was younger, but it's just different visiting those places when you're an adult and you can fully appreciate like the magnitude of things. And I think what I'm used to photographing are almost like little vignettes of this area, because even though the Central Coast, it's still kind of undeveloped, it's just not as rugged as Yosemite. I mean, Yosemite, you could point your camera in any direction when you're at Glacier Point, and there's not a human or a man-made structure that's going to be in your frame. And that's kind of exciting. It's kind of overwhelming at the same time because you almost don't know where to point your camera. When I'm out here taking pictures on the Central Coast, there are limitations because if I don't want a cityscape, if I don't want the lights from the town in my photograph, well, that really narrows my scope of where I can point my camera and take a photograph. But up there, it's like you're so immersed in nature that it is almost overwhelming. And coming around the corner when we were on our way to Glacier Point and seeing Half Dome for what felt like the first time, honestly, because I don't think I'd ever actually been to Glacier Point. The time I did go to Yosemite, it was just a long time ago. Coming around that corner at Glacier Point and seeing Half Dome for the first time was really, as cliche as it sounds, breathtaking because Half Dome is so huge and unique and pretty hard to describe with words.
Well, and you did a pretty good job. Breathtaking. Nature is always breathtaking for me. Even on that trip driving up, and I was talking to Brady as both of us were driving up in separate cars. And when I got up there, I just had a smile on my face because I knew that, Brady being a photographer, that he was just going to have so much fun up there taking pictures in an environment that he hadn't been in and something completely different where he's used to being in. Not doing wedding photography, not doing the typical sunset on the coast that he does. He was doing some astrophotography, but taking some amazing pictures of Half Dome and just capturing so much up there that it was just awesome. And it excited me to be able to, share that experience with him as well. So thanks for talking about that, Brady. What's the best advice that you have for someone who wants to get outdoors, but they struggle with the limited amount of time that they have?
Yeah, it just goes back to YOLO, really. It's a conscious decision. There's always going to be excuses. I have so many excuses, just at the ready for why I couldn't do any number of things. And if you really want it, you're going to do it. And I think you have to come to the realization that it's important and prioritize it. Otherwise, you just won't, because it's really easy to not. It's really easy to just go to work, drive home, eat dinner, watch TV, and go to sleep. And it is. It's just really easy. It's the path of least resistance. So, if you want to, you have to come to that realization that it's important to you, and then you have to just do it. Figure out a way, bring your whole family, or figure out a way to go on the way home from work. Make the time.
Make the time. And that's prioritize it is what the theme on this show is making the outdoors a priority in your life. Thanks so much for being with me today on the show and sharing your journey as a photographer and how the outdoors has had an impact in your photography business. Can you share with our S'more Outdoor listeners a few different ways that we can connect with you? I'll have them on the show notes page, but just kind of, share that information with us.
Sure. Yeah. Look me up on Facebook. It's probably where I'm most active. And Instagram. I post a lot on Instagram. But yeah, I'm on Twitter, Pinterest, all that stuff. But Facebook's probably the most active, and Instagram is close second.
What are your handles on Instagram and Facebook?
On Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, everything, it's just Cabe Creative, CABE Creative. And then on Facebook, it's Cabe Creative Photography. So it's a little bit longer, but if you do a Google search for Cabe Creative on Facebook, I think it'll pop right up. Or
if they do Google search for Brady Cabe on Facebook, that should pop up that page as well.
I don't know what's going to pop up first, but if you find my profile, just my regular profile, you can find a link to my photography page right there. Most of my profile is public.
Perfect. I'll have those all those links on the show notes page as well. So thank you so much, Brady, for being here today. I really appreciate your time and sharing your journey and inspiring others around the world to spend more time outdoors so that they can live with that childlike wonder again.
All right. Thank you, Brett.
That's it for today's episode of S'more Outdoor. I'm just so excited to be here with you again today to share the stories and outdoor experiences from people like Brady. A few things before I go. You can head on over to s'moreoutdoor.com to see a recap of Brady's show on his show notes page, along with ways that you can connect with him. Just type Brady in the search bar. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, I would love it if you would leave a comment on his page where Brady and I will respond. To stay updated with new episodes, I would appreciate if you would subscribe to the podcast and leave a rating and review. This helps to get the show noticed so others like you and I can learn about how the nature effect can have an impact in their lives and become inspired by these stories. And make sure while you're there to sign up for my newsletter. That way you won't miss out on any exclusive content that I send out. I hope Brady's story has inspired you to reconnect with nature and start living with childlike wonder again. Thank you for tuning in to the show that's changing lives around the world. Until next time, I challenge you to do something this week to get some more outdoor.